All right, guys. Before you all just drop yourself from the chair or faint seeing this diagram, that there are so many things labeled on this diagram, let me tell you that this is not very much difficult. We are gonna be starting with the basis of the spinal cord first, and then I'm gonna go into the details about our tracts, ascending and descending. And I'll try my best to make this basic concept of you very conceptually and very greatly, so that it will be easy for you to easily identify and understand the tracks that will be coming in our next video. First of all, we will start about the basic of the spinal cord. You all know that this is the spinal cord, and the inner matter of the spinal cord, as it is a collection of your cell bodies or nucleus, that is why the inside of the spinal cord is gray, and in spinal cord it is somewhat H-shaped or butterfly shaped, and in the center you have the central canal, and this where the central canal is located is known as your gray commissure, which connects your two gray columns of the spinal cord together. And outside there is a collection of your axons or myelinated sheet, which will give white appearance. That is why the outside of the spinal cord is white. Then we studied that there are certain roots of the spinal cord. These are your posterior roots and these are your anterior roots. And on the posterior root there is a swelling that is called as the posterior root ganglia, because here in the swelling there is collection of your cell body which are present outside the spinal cord. So whenever there is a collection of these cell bodies which are present outside your spinal cord or outside the brain, those are called as your ganglia. And as this collection of cell body is present outside the spinal cord and it's your posterior root, that is why it is known as the posterior root ganglia, and the other name of posterior in anatomy is dorsal. So that is why it is also known as your dorsal root ganglia. So that was basically it. Now I will start with how these different color marker nerves are gonna be shown, so that these nerves will be able for you to understand. Alright, let's take a very simple explanation, and I'll give you a very simple example so that it will help you in making your concept clear. First of all, let's see that for example, there is, okay, this is my hand, okay? For example, some stimulus comes, like this is touched, alright? So then on touching, if someone touches my hand, obviously there will be specialized receptors present in my skin which will be getting stimulated. Once those receptors are stimulated, obviously they have to either inform the spinal cord or they have to inform your brain. Means they have to deal with the nervous system. So those impulses which will carry the information from my skin, from my hand to the brain to tell what the brain has to do, those nerves which are carrying impulses towards this spinal cord, that is known as your sensory nerves. That has been shown in this diagram by the blue color mark. So all this blue color marker arrows I'm showing you, they are basically sensory nerves which are carrying impulses from my hand to the spinal cord's gray matter. Once they enter into the spinal cord, then they will have the information, spinal cord is going to read it, and then it is going to command what has the result or action has to be done. That is done by another root known as your anterior root. The anterior root will carry your motor nerves shown by the green color. These, after the information, after spinal cord gives the order, will carry that order and take it out of the spinal cord and to our muscles, which is shown here, and cause either contraction or relaxation. That is the most simple method of how the whole of the spinal cord and the brain works. Fine. Now, what happens is that in the posterior root that is carrying impulses towards it, those are your sensory nerve, and motor nerves, they are carrying the impulses away from the spinal cord towards our effectors. Now, the point will come that these posterior root and your anterior roots of the spinal cord, they will unite with one another and they will form your spinal trunk. This is called as the spinal trunk. Now we have studied that in our general anatomy, that the posterior root, they are gonna go backwards and they are gonna give branches known as the posterior rami, and these anterior horns of the spinal cord, they will give their own branches and move downward in front and our lateral position and divide into our anterior lateral branches. And that ramus is called as the anterior ramus. Now think about it. Like we know and the posterior ramus, where they supply posterior ramus, main function is to supply skin of our back and the muscles of the back. And anterior lateral, they supply your muscles of the front and the laterals. But don't you think that the muscles or the skin in our back, don't they do any motor functions? Are everything stimulated by them? Only sensation? We can only, like, if someone pat my back, I can only just feel it. I cannot react to that stimulus. Obviously, we can react to that stimulus. If someone pats your back and you don't like it, and you push it back, like, or you move aside, or you make motion of your back, so means there is some sort of motor neurons involved. Some effectors have to be done, and effectors are performed by your motor neuron. So how can that be possible? Because right now what we have seen in this diagram is basically that only your sensory nerves are in your posterior root and motor neurons are in your anterior root. But that is not in the case of the brain. Obviously, so it means that there is going to be at some point a crossover, a discrimination, dissociation of your sensory nerves with your mixed nerve, with your motor nerve. Means they're going to cross over with one another, so that the posterior nerves or the sensory nerve not only supply the back, but they also supply the front. Or the motor neuron, they not only supply the front, your abdomen part, but they also supply the back muscles as well. Those are called, that process is called as dissemination or crossing over. And the nerves that time, because they are then going to contain both the neurons of your sensory as well as your motor, those are called as your mixed nerves, shown by here. So up till here, these were the blue sensory nerves carrying sensation towards the spinal cord. Spinal cord reads it, gives the commands. By the green color marker that has been shown carrying your motor nerves will carry it away from the spinal cord towards the muscle. That is fine. But at the spinal trunk, where it again divides into your posterior ramus, and this one continues downward as your anterior ramus, there gonna be a crossing over of these sensory and motor nerves. The sensory nerves will not only go straight back to supply the posterior side, but they will also cross over. They will move from the back to the front side, crossing over to reach the anterior and lateral side and supply the anterior and lateral side of the body as well. Same is the case with the motor, that they will not only supply the anterior or lateral part of the body, but they will also move from the front towards the back to supply the posterior side. And when these nerves, they move from the front to the back or from the back to the front, they are going to mix with one another. There will be crossing over. And those nerves that have been formed are called as your mixed nerves. So I hope that I have tried my best to make a good concept about the basis, because on the basis of this are what we're going to be studying with our tracts. But before understanding what is a tract, you should have a general knowledge about what the spinal cord is. Because obviously, if you don't know the spinal cord, tracts will not be easy for you guys. So I hope that you guys will be able to understand it. I made it quite simple, giving you a simple example and trying my best to help you understand it. Still, if you have problem, you can comment on the below. I'll make another video so that you guys can do it, because my success is with you guys understanding it. And if you guys will be able to understand it, you become great future doctors or future whatever medical students or whatever you guys want, dentist, occupational therapy, physical therapy. That will be a great help for me. So best of luck to you guys, and take your time and have a clear concept about the spinal cord. The next we're going to start is going to be with the tracts, ascending and descending. Thank you.